everyone. Happy Monday.
Yeah, hey, everybody.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We are covering a topic today that we've kind of touched along with when we talk about heart disease, but today we're really going to dig into cholesterol. I think we all know what cholesterol is, and probably been told that we have somewhat of a high cholesterol, bordering. I mean, it's just very common. I know it's very common. It's a very common question that I get. Cholesterol, well, first of all, coronary heart disease is the most common type of heart disease, right? And high cholesterol is a contributor to that. So that's one reason why we really need to focus on it. And sometimes with cholesterol, most of the time, you don't have symptoms. So it's kind of like a, I don't know, what do they call it? Like
insidious.
Like a hidden risk factor.
Sure.
You know, so we don't really know what's going on until it's too late. And the problem with, high cholesterol, this leads to heart attack and stroke.
Mostly.
And coronary heart disease, I mean, I think it's 1 out of 5 deaths due to, coronary heart disease. And really, I was just reading a statistic that adults over 20, 1 in 20 of adults over 20 have coronary heart disease. And that's pretty crazy, because now we're not just pushing along into the older population where maybe we think that we get, the common diseases and sicknesses. That it happens at all ages. And it's really something that you need to be educated on, and you need to know your numbers. You need to work with your doctor to understand what's going on so you can help reduce your cholesterol and prevent it from increasing. So Ryan's gonna quickly give us maybe not quickly, but he's gonna give us the science and dig into all about cholesterol, and I'll try to intervene if anything gets a little bit too scientific.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. It's hard because this is a topic that we can dive deep on just one little area, and then we could spend a lot of time on the pharmacological options and the pros and the cons there, but we're gonna try to simplify it today. We're gonna run down sort of what it is, how it presents, and risk factors, what the therapy options are, and we'll kind of go through that to the best of our ability. But you're right, a lot of people deal with it, and of course there's some genetic component. So high cholesterol, it's also called dyslipidemia. It's also called hypercholesterolemia. Familial hypercholesterolemia is that genetic component, which I think you might have. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, so those terms just describe an abnormal lipid panel. That's what your cholesterol panel is referred to as, but it's really just measuring cholesterol as a type of fat. So they call it a lipid panel. Whereas dyslipidemia is the most common. That's typically where you see all of your lipids. So your HDL is going to be considered low, your LDL will be high, your triglycerides will be high, total cholesterol high. And we'll talk about all those in just a quick second. But she nailed it, right on the head. It's the coronary artery disease part that we're most concerned about. So it all contributes to heart disease. And when you look at heart disease, like Lisa said, the #1 cause is CAD, coronary artery disease. And that's a buildup of plaque. That's what they call atherosclerotic disease. And actually, there's a term now for it, atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, ASCVD. And that's the way that they're really kind of approaching this, because over time, high amounts of primarily LDLC, and we'll specify what those are in just a second, but that ultimately is what, over time, out of control LDLC, along with some inflammation, obviously, is what starts to develop and build up these plaques, and it sort of becomes more occlusive. It shrinks down the arteries, and ultimately potentially can lead to a break off. Some small fragment breaks off, lands in your heart or your brain, leading to therefore a heart attack or a stroke. So that's the type of stuff we're ultimately trying to prevent. And Lisa's spot on again with know your numbers. I mean, it's really just simple blood work. And
also, too, it's not just the traditional panel that most doctors do.
Right.
You need to go a little bit deeper. You need to understand your particle size. I mean,
Let's talk about that.
There's so many little parts to it. It's like everything's got a little letter. LDL for this, ApoB, I mean, little a, but you have to be with a physician, work with a physician that understands this and can really help you dissect it. And, I'm pretty sure insurance covers the deeper test, but I know it's not expensive if it doesn't. And it's so crucial to your health that you have got to know these numbers.
Yeah, let's just do that real quick. So traditionally, lipid panel is your total cholesterol, which is a number of 200 roughly is where your break off is. Then you have your HDL, which people refer to as your good cholesterol. However, they're showing that it doesn't offer quite the protection people think it does. So that's one area that's under more scrutiny now. Then you have your LDL, which is considered your bad cholesterol. That area is still being measured as LDL-C, but But Lisa's right. It's probably apolipoprotein B is a better metric than LDL-C. That is one that absolutely should be on your lipid panel. Please, please, please make sure that you guys have that on your next blood run, because it
Say it one more time.
apolipoprotein B, ApoB. So that's the one you really want to get. All right, let's look at that. Let's pay attention to that, and that as well as triglycerides. So that's the fat in your blood. Typically, that number is around 150. Oh, sorry, the LDL number is they want to have under 100. I think 130 is roughly. It's been a little while now since I've been really heavy in the guidelines, but I think around 130 is your break of considered high or low. But under 100 is your target. That's milligrams per deciliter blood work. And then on the HDL, I think it's 60. I think the 60, they want to see you above 60. So, but anyway, yeah, Lisa's right. They have lipoprotein A, there's different particle sizes. You do want to work with a physician that's familiar with these different ways of analyzing your lipid panel.
I think HDL is above 40.
Is it above 40? Okay. There's 40, there's 50 or 60. I just like, it's been a little bit. And that was like I was trying to say, it's not, today's discussion isn't necessarily to define that, because when you get your blood work, your lab, typically the lab also lists the measurements, what's considered normal and not normal. And of course, your physician may interpret those differently as well. So, all right, what do we want to talk about next? We want to talk about, let's look at risk factors. We know we're going to talk about, there's 3 risk factors. There's smoking, out of control. So we're not going to talk about smoking though. Just guys, assume that if you're smoking, you're increasing your risk exponentially. It's just
LDL up,
HDL
down, triglycerides up. I mean, no matter what.
The second main risk factor is your out of control high blood pressure, so hypertension. So that's an area we have to get under control. We have to be extremely prudent with that. Get an at-home blood pressure monitor, please. Know your numbers and test properly. Follow the directions on how to get the most accurate score. Watch YouTube, whatever it is. And then I think the third one is apolipoprotein B or LDL-C, right? Just so the third one is really that LDL concentration and making sure that we know what that number is and working on lowering that as much as possible. I mean, other risk factors, of course, we know are sedentary lifestyle, obesity. What are some others, Lise? I mean, insulin resistance. We just did a Zoom on insulin resistance. I would love for you guys to watch that as well. There's a lot of weird overlap, and they share a lot of the same type of risk factors as different disease states, whether it's insulin resistance, diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension, so there certainly is a lot of overlap.
Right. And I mean, of course, diet, high processed foods.
Sure. And that's a question I get. That's a question I get a lot. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But should people avoid saturated fats if they have a high LDL?
It really, the research is really showing now that it depends on the quality of what you're eating. So like going to McDonald's and getting a hamburger is different than eating like a grass-fed, lean red meat hamburger. They do very different things to your body. Same thing goes for, coconut oil. I mean, that is high in saturated fat, but that is also proven to help and benefit markers for heart disease
and inflammation.
And inflammation. So it really just depends. But like, you don't want to be getting your saturated fat from high processed foods, from fried foods, from fatty meats that just are I guess unclean. I don't know.
Sure. I follow you.
You have to buy good meats. You have to buy good meats. And even there's some benefits to like high fat or full fat dairy, but it also has to be like, a grass fed organic dairy. Especially with the yogurt, there's benefits there. So you have to be choosy. These things are not equal. Like a McDonald's hamburger and a home cooked grass fed lean red meat hamburger don't equal the same thing. They don't.
No, I agree. All right, let's talk about presentation. You did say that it's kind of sleeper. Most people don't know they have high cholesterol, especially if you have familial hypercholesterolemia. That potentially can present in young children. So again, knowing that if you have a family member that has either died from a cardiovascular event or had a cardiovascular event, has high diagnosed LDL, you should know, you need to know your numbers. You certainly need to know your numbers. For the most part though, the presentation is insidious, which means it's really unknown and continues to get worse over time until potentially there's a cardiovascular event. So myocardial infarction or a stroke. There are some things though, like erectile dysfunction, poor blood flow, poor perfusion. So, either intermittent, it's called intermittent claudication, or peripheral artery
Which is
disease,
that's like the cramping of
pain
the
in cramping,
calves,
and, well,
right?
and also that I'm talking about too, some of the peripheral neuropathies, even has
Gotcha.
more to do with PAD, the peripheral artery disease. So there are some things that start to have indicators, but typically, most people we're seeing is it's a lifestyle thing. They're presenting with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes at the same time. And a lot of it has to do with sedentary lifestyle and poor nutrition.
Right. And always too, just remember like, even though obesity is a big contributor and big risk factor for heart disease, and typically we think those that are obese also have high cholesterol, it doesn't have to be that way. You can be skinny and have high cholesterol.
Yeah.
I mean, just same thing with, you can be skinny and have diabetes. So you really have to know what's going on inside your body. It's not necessarily, what you see.
All right, I know you guys are not going to be surprised by this, but to start with treatment options, we know big pharma is involved here big time. And again, I'm not going to opine on that exactly, but I will tell you that the guidelines still specify that lifestyle changes is number one. Always, always, always lifestyle changes. And that's the message that we're trying to convey to you today. Probably more because the insurance, the way that, especially on the American side, the way that our chronic disease is managed, it's all done through insurance. And it's all done through, reimbursements. And there's not much there when that first diagnosis comes in with dyslipidemia for lifestyle changes. I mean, hopefully there's at least an introduction, like a conversation on it, but then you're sent home and left to figure it out all by yourself. And that's not cool. Like, that's seriously not an easy thing to do. It's awfully intimidating at times. And so that's part of the reason why we do these Zooms too. We get a lot of questions, and it's helpful for us to have this content to share with everybody and to let you know that the first place, and of course the most impactful, is lifestyle. And it's not just supplementation. We'll talk about that in a minute, but certainly we'll go through that, because beyond that, the next thing is statin drugs. And we know that statins are widely used. I don't know, in America alone, I think it's 40 million people are on a statin drug, and that just number continues to climb. They are effective in a lot of ways, but they come with some downsides. And I always talk about from a drug-induced nutrient deficiency, right? We've done this, I believe, the video. We've done a drug-induced nutrient deficiency Zoom on statins. I think we've already done it. But nonetheless, there's quite a few things that happen when you go on a statin drug. And that's what I want to touch on real quick now, Lisa, and then we can jump into some other things related to stuff. But real quick, it could deplete your body of, so if you start a statin drug, it can deplete your body of coenzyme Q10. It's the way that statins work, they're considered, the mechanism of action is an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor. So it basically stops the production of LDL cholesterol. But with that, potentially, we're losing our coenzyme Q10 stores, right? Also testosterone. So it can affect our testosterone production, because remember, I didn't talk about this, but cholesterol, of course, is a precursor to sex hormones. We need cholesterol. It's an essential component and structural component of our cellular membranes. So, it's interesting, Lisa, LDL, like when kids are born, is like next to zero. And then, like, I don't know, in their early years, it's only like 10 or 20 milligrams per deciliter. And then over some stage in our life, it starts hitting. And we're undergoing the most rapid brain development, and as a child in the first year of life, and second, third, and fourth, fifth. And so your LDL is so low. So for the people that say you need high LDL numbers, I'm sorry, I'm just not in that camp.
Right.
Yeah, I do support aggressive LDL lowering. I really do, but I want to do it as much as possible with lifestyle.
Right.
Right. So lowers, I said testosterone, because we know it's a precursor to sex hormones. Lowers vitamin D, right? We'll talk about that. That's an essential. We need our vitamin D. It lowers vitamin E, lowers selenium. I think that's it. Maybe a few others. Let me see if I have. Carnitine. Carnitine, zinc, copper, and omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3 fatty acids as well, which we'll talk about because of the factor form.
Right. And even though, this statins do deplete certain minerals, and they can have side effects within your body, it is still, it's very important to be on them if you need to be on them, because the risk. The
risk reward, yeah, sure.
It's more important to have your cholesterol numbers down. What the goal is here is to really help you. Say you are on a statin or cholesterol lowering medication. Our goal here is to help you start to decrease naturally through lifestyle and supplementation, and that way you can work with your doctor. Maybe as your numbers start to decrease, then they can start to decrease your medication, and the end goal is eventually to be off the medication.
And I've seen that before.
100%. This is always doing this with your physician. My dad is one of them, and but it's still a constant battle. Like he can't slip up. You know, what my dad is now off his medication for cholesterol, but if he starts to, you know, deviate into a little bit of maybe not eating as healthy, his numbers are going to go right back up. So you have to really maintain a lifestyle. Lifestyle is so crucial.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. What do we want to talk about next?
So I just wanting to tie into lifestyle with our supplements, certain things that help to like decrease our LDL, increase our HDL, and also decrease our triglycerides. And some of those things can
Did you say that correctly? I'm sorry, did I hear that properly?
Decrease LDL, increase HDL, and decrease triglycerides, if I did not say that correctly. But one of the big things for LDL is high fiber foods, soluble.
Soluble.
Thank you, fiber. And that's a case of fiber in our coffee. We've added that in there. So that's just another benefit to our coffee. But you know, you can also get that with eating high fiber foods, your beans, oats, but always, you know, trying to make sure we're keeping a low carbohydrate diet as well with cholesterol. You need to get rid of all your bad saturated fats. And that's kind of what we just talked about, that like the junky foods of like your dairies and your sorry.
I don't know. What are we talking about?
No, your red meats and your dairies and your junk oils, right? You want to replace those with the beneficial stuff, the heart healthy stuff. So your grass-fed dairy, your grass-fed meats, your olive oil, your coconut oil, all those things beneficial. Omega-3s. This is fatty fish.
So omega-3 fatty acids, actually, the FDA does have a position statement on where they say it's approved marketing or approved claim, health claim to lower triglycerides. So that is absolutely one benefit of omega-3 fatty acids. There is a prescription drug on the market that does exactly that. Typically, the dose starts around 1 gram, so 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. But truthfully, it's around 3 to 4 grams where it really starts to lower cholesterol.
Right, which is what, you know, we always say you can increase.
You should increase.
Your factor 4, you know, we say 2 per day, but if you're really working on something, you can increase your dose. What is it, up to 8?
Well, so 2 of these a day, like this is the dose. 2 a day is 1,000, basically just under 1,000 milligrams of EPA.
Which is good maintenance.
Good start. Good has good for inflammation, all that, but really you need to increase it to about 6 soft gels per day to get to the 3,000 milligram ballpark to start to lower your triglycerides.
Right. So it's super important. And you know, we always struggle, like it's great to eat your fatty fish. I mean, I would eat salmon every single day of my life if I could, but we also know that our fish, our sea is not as, you know, clean as it was, and we can start to show buildup of mercury. So you also have to limit that. So that's where it's really great to be able to supplement. So I try to balance how much salmon I have a week, and I make sure I always get my factor 4. 0 trans fats, like 0, even the smallest amount is going to increase, can lead to increasing your LDL. That comes in your packaged foods, guys, like your Twinkies, all that junk that we like love, you know, to walk down those center aisles of the grocery stores, and they're all in there. There's filled with trans fats, and legally they're allowed to put on their 0 trans fat, even if there's like what, I think it's 0.5 something. I think it may be 0.5. So just remember those foods, the trans fat is made to increase the shelf life. So it lasts on the shelf longer. So if you see something like there, then it can last on your shelf for 6 months. Red flag, something's wrong.
Years, probably.
Right. I mean, exercise, crucial. You have got to exercise. Studies show that, especially high intensity interval training. And with high intensity interval training, that's where the most benefit is seen with your cholesterol. You don't have to do that, but more than 1 to 2 times a week. I'm not saying exercise only 1 to 2 times a week. Just incorporate that into your active lifestyle 1 to 2 times a week. Okay.
Actually, let me comment on that. I will say, so there's a study, and this is a good, strong study. It showed about 50% reduction in mortality for those that started at least 3 hours a week of exercise. And I made a note here. I wanted to write it down. So 1 hour of strength of the 3 hours, 1 hour of zone 2. Maybe you can elaborate on what zone 2 is, and 1 hour high intensity. So that's like your boxing, your dance, your interval class type stuff, but
divided up over the week. Right?
Yeah. So 3 hours. However it works for you. However it works for you. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And zone 2, that's like your sustained endurance. So you can talk during it.
It's not easy.
But you're like, okay, yeah, you're having like little conversations. You're not full blown talking. So it's maybe a super light jog. Maybe if you're riding a bike, just get up to where you feel like, you know, you're huffing and puffing, but you can still, again, hold a conversation. That's kind of how to monitor that zone 2. And what did you say? Was that an hour for the week?
Yeah, it was 3 hours a week. So
Of
1
the
hour of
endurance.
each, one
I mean, of
hour
the
of strength. We have 1 hour of zone 2 and 1 hour of
Okay.
high intensity.
So just being able to do that, if you can decrease it by 50%, that's huge.
50% reduction in mortality.
That's huge. Okay. 3 hours a week. Commit to it, guys. As you said, vitamin D, which is kind of a, this is where it gets. So say you're on a statin and it depletes your vitamin D, but also if you have, if you want to add
even
vitamin
beyond
D,
that, most people are low in vitamin D.
Right. But you need to add vitamin D to get your cholesterol down, but you're taking the statin. They work against each other. So you got to make sure you're taking your vitamin D. Another thing to know is your numbers, because we all don't need the same amount of vitamin D. So if you are based on your blood work, you need to increase your dose. That's why we also have given 60 capsules in our vitamin D. B vitamins.
Yeah, B vitamins. The goal to lower homocysteine. Exactly. So I was a very big proponent of making sure the B vitamins were in the multis, and we put them as methylated forms of B vitamin. If you're not sure what that means, we've done another Zoom, but you can look them up. But that's how you want to consume your B vitamins, is methylated form.
Yes.
But the B12, B6, and then also the B3. So the niacin in here, niacin is another tool for raising your HDL. So keep that in mind as well. But it'll help raise your HDL. It'll help bring down your homocysteine levels. All very, very important sort of tools to help manage your risk.
Right. Increasing more fruits and vegetables, adding in super greens and super reds.
That's for the phytonutrients. A lot of that's for all your phytonutrients, antioxidants, and it's stuff you don't typically eat. They see it under the rainbow, but a lot of these are foods that are super high nutrient density, and of course have a lot of benefit to reduce inflammation.
Right. And then you have the protein powder along with, where's our amino acids. Okay, so the goal here is to help you lose weight, because we know that if you are overweight, this is typically common of having poor cholesterol numbers, high LDL, low HDL, high triglycerides, because triglycerides don't just come from like the fats that we eat. What it is also is just extra calories stored that our body doesn't need for fuel right then. That's going to get those fats circulating in your blood. So a lot of times we don't think about triglycerides like that. It can just come from overeating. Okay, so really we need to focus on weight reduction. And
I don't know if you mean fat reduction. We're trying to shed some fat weight and put on lean muscle.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the protein powder and the essential aminos are going to help with that. I mean, you can take this protein powder and you can actually make it into a meal replacement. Say you put in, I love my combo of putting in the coffee and the super greens in my protein powder, but also avocados are so great for helping to lower LDL and increase HDL. Put a quarter of an avocado in your shake. So you're making it more nutrient dense, more calorie dense, so it can be like a meal replacement.
And I think people would ask, well, isn't avocado high in fat? And so maybe you can answer that question while I pull up this and make sure.
Yes, it is. But again, it's your good healthy fats that actually are beneficial to your body. Same thing goes for nuts. But again, you have to understand that this always is about moderation. So you don't think like, oh, an avocado is great for cholesterol, I'm going to eat a whole avocado a day. No, too much. Okay, our bodies don't need that much. Quarter of an avocado. Nuts, don't just sit there with a bag of nuts or a jar of nuts and go to town. A serving of almonds is like 12 almonds. Count them out, guys. I mean, it looks kind of pathetic when you look at it, it's only 12, but that's the serving size. So you have to understand everything in moderation. So again, our protein powder and our essential aminos are here to help you put on muscle mass and decrease your fat mass, therefore helping you with your cholesterol levels. What else I had? There's benefits of the shiitake mushroom. Shiitake mushrooms are also proven to benefit cholesterol, again, in our coffee. Okay, I think that's what.
You got everything?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Besides, I just want to let you know too, with triglycerides, I mean, 1 in 4 have increased triglycerides. So we might not think like, oh, maybe, that's not me. I mean, 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 adults. So it's pretty common. What are those questions like? I did not read
yeah, we covered actually. Yeah, there was nothing new.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
Good.
We're good. I think we did great, Lisa. I think that was a good coverage. I really do. We touched on everything except magnesium, but again, that being involved in so many reactions in our body with 300, it has everything to do from sleep, stress, bone, high blood pressure. I mean, so it's another crucial one, because another pillar of health, again, is sleep. We get into that a lot, but that's a lot of times at night where your body starts to take out the trash from the day. So your cellular cleanup is going on. So a lot of what the shuffling around of particles of lipoproteins and cholesterol is nothing more than just that. It's it's removal of waste and recycling. So
Right.
keep that in mind, that sleep is also a really important part of this process. But that
Yeah.
exercise thing, hit that hard. And I mean, you don't have to go crazy. I'm just saying, start with that 150 minutes, or like we said, 3 hours a week. If you could get that, that'd be even better. But really start there. Make sure you're covering your nutrient gaps. Make sure you're aware of any drug-induced nutrient depletions from taking the statin drug. Make sure you know your cholesterol numbers. Ask for apolipoprotein B. If you're getting totaled, maybe you can seek out a new provider if you're just not happy with what you're hearing from your current providers. Online telemedicine platforms now, and there's functional health providers that can help you understand and can do a little bit more of a deeper dive into your lipid panel. So
Right.
all very important stuff. Watch out for your insulin resistance, because that is also another big one that contributes to heart disease. But get on the other Zoom and listen up about the type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. I think this one's a great one. We had
And the
another
blood
one
pressure one.
we had one
pretty good.
on high blood pressure, because like you heard me say, one of the top 3 risk factors is out of control high blood pressure. So know your numbers. You can do it easily. Blood pressure, cholesterol is an easy blood panel. Lisa said vitamin D is easy. I mean, you can get your insulin resistance done. It's a little harder because it's the oral glucose tolerance test. We talked
Right.
about it. That's a big one though. So guys, that's the takeaway. I know it's not also super simple, but truthfully, once you start incorporating some of these simple lifestyle measures into your daily routine, it just becomes second nature. And honestly, along the way, I feel like you get better and well and more informed. And you just, I think then you know more, right? So,
Yeah, you're your own advocate for your
It-
healthcare. You
exactly.
need to take charge. You cannot rely on anybody else.
thank you.
And right here, we really have our ultimate wellness pack, guys.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
always add the coffee,
Sure.
into it. And we designed it for this purpose.
Yep.
We designed it because it's for health and wellness. It's not like a one thing that's a quick fix. It's overall lifestyle, overall health and wellness. So make sure you get yours today and start reaping the benefits.
Okay.
Any further questions? Always available via email.
All right, you guys rock. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.